how much money are you paying yourself for the amount of work you're doing? Because the idea in a business is to step out of it and therefore replace you. Welcome to the Marketing Report. My name is Russell Pearson. This is episode number 69. The Marketing Report is a podcast for passionate yet frustrated business owners who are looking for a competitive edge. And today I want to talk about something that's really on the other side of most of the competitive edge stuff that I discuss. And it's about scaling your business. So I often talk about lead generation. I often talk about closing that sale and making sure that your pipeline is full. I also talk about how do you bring people to come back, but how do you scale your business is a large piece of the pie, because every time we're successful in getting these pipelines of sales and marketing in place, the question is, can we scale? And so that's one of the questions I always ask right at the start of any engagement is, do we have the opportunity to scale? Are there things that we need to consider before we get started? Now, I don't usually put cart before horse and say, all right, when this works, this is what we're going to do. There's usually an element of experimentation at the start of any sales and marketing process. But once we start getting the wheels turning, that is definitely where the next consideration needs to go to. So what I start with before I even get into that discussion is, what is the size of the business we're looking to work with? What is the size of the business we want to become? Because it's that gap that is going to enable me to see right at the start of any engagement, can we do it? With the success models that we've got in place, can we even grow to the size that we're talking about? So I want to talk about some of those considerations right up front before you even get started in the sales and marketing space. As far as growing your business, there are some considerations around whether you should, whether you can, and at the end of the day, whether you want to, right? So there's all sorts of reasons and pros and cons for all of that. So that's what we're going to discuss today. And if you're in a situation where you are looking to scale, I think that this is a very important thing for you to consider about whether you should or shouldn't, whether the opportunities to scale are there, because we're at the point now where the sales and marketing, just about any industry, there is opportunities to make these things work. It's not a case of, well, that one doesn't work. It's just putting the right pieces in the right order, and you will eventually get your sales and marketing to work as a pipeline. To what degree is very, very different from business to business and potentially from industry to industry. But yes, we can get people in to work with your business. Yes, we can get not just any business in, but actually good quality business, those ideal customers that we want. But on the flip side, when we get them all in, can we scale? Now, I'll give you an example of why I care about this stuff so much. There have been multiple times throughout the last 25 years where we have not just been successful in the marketing and sales, we've actually smashed it out of the park. And what's happened on the flip side of that is that the business was not set up to take advantage of the success. It wasn't set up with either the right people, the right systems, or the opportunity to actually grow within the time frame that will enable them to get the leads and then the sales. So what ends up happening is a couple of things. Salespeople can't cope with the conversion side of things, so you end up having to reduce the leads, which reduces the entire growth platform, and then we end up losing a job. and as a marketing person, when you're successful, losing that opportunity on the other side because you've been so successful is actually quite a painful thing. So the ensuring that the opportunity to ramp up is there is definitely one of those considerations. So there are sort of four things that you need to look at when it comes to scaling and deciding whether you can or whether ideally you should. So number one is looking at your product and your service. So let's assume, for instance, that we've got a business that is working successfully. We've got a business that is actually selling things and it's making money, all right? So this could be as small as, a few units a month right up to, hundreds of units a month. It depends, again, industry based, they're all different. Every business is different to different scales and based off what the directors or the owner's ambitions really are. But let's assume that we've got a business that's running in some capacity. It might not be the way you want it to be running, but it is running. There is a way that we're getting sales in the door and we're delivering on those sales. So the question is then to look at your products and services, and ideally this is what you ask yourself well before you get to this problem, is do you have a product and service, or product or service, that you can sell more than once? Because if you don't have a product if you've got a product that you can only sell once, it means that every single prospect becomes one opportunity for you, rather than every single prospect, I can't speak today, every single prospect becoming a lifetime of value for you, where they'll be able to buy multiple times. That's why when I'm looking at a business, I want to see some sort of consumable, if possible, something that a customer consume on a regular basis. Because if that is there, then it means there's massive opportunity to bring those customers back again and again and again, which means you're actually building. So let's imagine, for instance, that we've got 100 leads into the business. So we'll say 100 customers into the business in a quarter. Now we can deal with those, only one at a time, because if we've only got a product that we can only sell once, then we get to the next quarter and we have to start all over again, which is incredibly tiring. As I've said 100 times, there's only energy that we've got in our business, the energy that we've spent in the past, which is the money we now have, and the energy we have in the future, which is the time. And everyone's got that same limited amount of time. So you miss out on what really is in the banking, finance, and wealth making space, compounding. You don't have the opportunity to go, all right, we've got 100 customers in this quarter, and then we build on with another 100 customers, and then over the course of a year, we'll have those original 100 customers come back and shop with us again. That's how you grow. That's a great way to grow. I remember I was dealing with a business probably a few months ago, just doing an advisory piece, and they sold, I won't be specific about the product, but they sold a wall hanging unit that you would only use once in 10 years. Because it was very good. It sold for less than $12, and the maximum amount of these things that you would have in your entire house is maybe 5 or 6. And so that means that you've got one customer who most of the time is going to buy this $12 deal, or there's a package of 5 things that's going to be less than $25. That means that your opportunity cost for getting that customer in has to be less than the product cost and the opportunity cost to even make it worthwhile, which means that let's say that you're doing advertising to get that person in. Let's say $12 product, we're buying it for $2, which means there's $10 profit in there. Then we've then got shipping. We've got all the marketing and sales and advertising that costs to come out of it. What's left out of that is the profit. So, which means that it could be somewhere around $6. That's all the money we can spend. That's all our profit. So it has to be less than that to actually get a single dollar in the door. So it doesn't allow for much scaling. We want an opportunity to be able to sell again and again and again. So if you're running a consultancy, let's say, is there an opportunity to help your customers on an ongoing basis? Is there an opportunity to help your customers the next time they need something that you are consulting on? If you're running a products and services business, it might be based around one prime product, but are there potentially other additional products which complement the main thing that you're selling? Are there accessories? And ideally, back to the consumables, are there a consumable element? That's why things like printing, so toners and things like that, when it comes to inkjet machines and printing machines, often they'll give away the machine, because all they want to do is get an appliance in your house that then you will pay for the consumable, which is the ink or the toner. All right, so another great thing, cars on the road, it's the petrol, it's a consumable. So what is it in your business though? Thinking about my own business, it's the opportunity to actually help people each month, if that's what they're after, to make sure that I'm supporting them through the different changes that happen in their business. So as their business changes, that they usually need strategic support on how to adjust to the change. So that's where it falls into my category. But what is it for yours? What is the other product and service that you sell? And if you don't have anything other than the one string to your bow, and the customer is unlikely to buy that again, then I would invite you to look at what problem you're solving and what other things around that would be another ability for someone to purchase from you, either as the next step or the next step after that. And there's a really cool way of doing that where you go, all right, what problem does my business create through my solution? What problem does it cause? So to give you another example, let's say that you wanted to get a business customer on something they often have problems with it near the start of their business. All right, well, tax time comes around, there's compliance. So it's getting their books in order, all right, because so that can be a problem. All right, I've got my books in order. Suddenly, I know what I've earned, what I've done, my performance. I know about my performance now. So then an accountant potentially or a business coach will come in and help you analyze that data and say, all right, what are the other opportunities for you to improve the profit? What are the other opportunities to fix things there? And then you go, all right, well, okay, I understand my numbers now. I understand my measurement. So what do I need to do next? All right, well, now I'm ready to grow my business. And then it moves into marketing and sales. And then that moves into the problem of I don't have production to grow, and it goes on and on and on. So just think about the buyer's journey for your business and what problem are you creating by the solution that you're providing. So that's number one. So making sure that you have something you can sell more than once to the same customer, because it's going to allow you to have that compound opportunity to build your audience. As long as you do a good job, you're going to keep those customers year on, year out if they can buy from it in a fairly regular fashion. It's funny, even the housing market, real estate, that's a place where they understand the opportunity in the life cycle of a buyer, and a buyer might spend might work with you only 5 times in their lifetime, but if you've done a good job, that's 5 opportunities, usually once every 7 years on average, to work with you. So they are very, very good at keeping up to date with their communication and their list management, so that they know what's going on in, again, the life cycle, the lifespan of a buyer. So that's number one. Do you have the opportunity to sell multiple times? Number 2 is a massive one, and it's the thing that usually causes most businesses to run out of energy and go out of business, which is that they don't have a profitable business model. So this is the number one mistake in this profitable business model that I see probably more than ever, or more than anything, is the person who's building the business will do a role in the business and not pay themselves according to the value of that role. So you'll have a business owner who's working 60 hours a week doing a management role in the business, where a manager, if you were to employ one, wouldn't be working more than, say, 40, 45 hours in a week, right? Well, they really shouldn't be. I mean, otherwise you usually want to get some skin in the game. So how much money are you paying yourself for the amount of work you're doing? Because the idea in a business is to step out of it and therefore replace you. So as the business grows, what you end up finding is, because the business owner held this key spot in the business, you can't affordably replace them because they haven't been paying themselves the right amount of money for the role that they've been doing. So let's say that they're, a manager that you could potentially get someone for $100,000. All right. Maybe you can't in your industry. Maybe it's a lot higher, but let's say $100,000 just to make it easy. They might be paying themselves $100,000, but they're doing twice as much work as what that manager would do. So it actually skews the profitability of the business. That's a sneaky one. It comes in and it sneaks up on people, and people don't realize how much time they're spending that an employee, as a manager in the business, wouldn't be. Same thing happens with CEOs, like where you've got a founder that started a business and then you get up to managing, a general manager, and then you might put a CEO in. There are different amounts of activity and outcomes they're doing that often the original driver in the business, was overcompensating for. All right, so that's a classic one that I see a lot. Now, let's put that to the side and assume that that's not happening. You've just got to look at your numbers and make sure that you're not trying to make up the scale. And what I mean by that is, does a single product sell affordably, as in profitably? If it doesn't, how many of the product that you're selling or the service you're selling do you need to sell before you're past break even. And if that's something that doesn't scale, so let's say that, I'll give you an example. We're working from home, getting 100 orders out a month. And once we get up to a certain amount, there are restrictions to how much we can actually get out from the house. There are also logistical issues, and we need to get ourselves a factory. All right, so bang, our growth has been hit with this new cost that it didn't have before, and we didn't forecast for that. So we grew into a problem that potentially, took us out of profit and then potentially out of business. Because once you're in that unprofitable space and you're growing fast, potentially you're digging straight down. So you've got to know where your milestones are to actually know where your break even points are, and especially around growth. When you're forecasting, you've got to forecast for that growth, because a lot of people don't. But forecasting that growth and understanding what sort of costs you might have to be in this new space where you're moving to. Now, a lot of the time, the business owners have never been in the space that they're growing to because they haven't run a business before, so they haven't grown a business through that milestone before. And that's when it's definitely worth getting advice on things they need to be considering. There are another simple one is employee contracts and employee requirements that change in Australia once you get more than 15 employees. A lot of people don't consider what happens once you have more than 15 employees, and the way you need to structure, not only, the contractual arrangements should always be the same, but then you're starting to get into a different tier of conversation, which means that it's there are different outlays for redundancy. There are different requirements you have to put into the business to make sure that it's running compliantly. All right, so there are all sorts of things that you've got to look at. So forecasting around that growth is a big one. Now, there's a lot of people listening to this podcast I know who are not really running a business. Now, to define what that means, a business is the profitable enterprise that runs without you. That's one of the definitions, and it's a good definition too, because it means you should always be trying to move out of it. But a lot of people are running a practice, which means that the business is them. It's centralized around them and the work that they do. And if you took them out, there would be no business, right? So that means that if you're looking to scale as a practice, and I'll get to this point in a minute, can you take on more work? How many hours are you actually working? Understanding hour for value return on investment. And understanding what your human capabilities are, because we overestimate what we think that we can do, and then actually often underestimate what we can actually do. So it's an interesting paradigm, that one. So profitable business model. Make sure you're forecasting for growth. Do you start with a profitable business model? If you're not profitable, when you're thinking of growing is going to accelerate the problem, not fix the problem. So there may be an instance where you go, all right, well, and I'll give you my old agency background. When we had 6 designers on, our operational costs no longer became an issue, and every designer we added onto that after the fact became more profitable, right, for our business. But then you look a little bit further and you go, well, how many designers can you manage as the director of the company before you really need to put a second tier of management in? And the number tends to be around 7. So really, you've only got this sweet spot of 6 and 7 people before you have to put production management in, if you haven't already. And if you're the one running that role, is there enough profit in the business to make sure you can replace yourself into that role and still have a business that actually provides you with the outcome you want, which is profit? All right, so profitability is a massive one, and understanding where you sit in that. If you don't know whether you're profitable or not, then you probably shouldn't be thinking about growing. So go talk to your accountant, talk to your bookkeeper, get very clear about your numbers, and understand, where are your break evens and what profitability actually looks like. So number 4 is, all right, well, let's assume that we are profitable. Let's assume that we have something that we can sell more than once, so that we're actually trying to compound our opportunity and growth. The next question is there a market opportunity for scale? Are there enough clients, prospects, customers in the market that we can get more market share? That's it's an interesting one, because like most small businesses, you just assume that that's the case. But it's interesting, the more people are niching and then niching within niches, I love the word niche, or niches within niches, The tighter that market gets, and sometimes you'll actually find that there's not an available amount of customers for where I am. And even in niches, like you think that the idea, I'll give you some weird niches, right? Let's say I was talking to a client the other day, and I'm gonna make a weird example, so I'm not actually calling them out. Let's say that you were a financial advisor for a butcher shop. And what I mean by that is that you'd niched into butcher shops. You were really good at helping butchers become wealthy and become protected through their financial advice. All right, that was your absolute niche. Now, you might be thinking, well, I've gone into the niche. I'm doing well in this space. I've decided not to look at my competitors because I'm focusing in on what I'm doing. And to be fair, a lot of people don't do enough competitor analysis. There's this weird thing that I hear in entrepreneurial circles, a lot of startup community, where they go, focus on what you're doing, don't focus on the competitors. And while I agree with you shouldn't be chasing the competitors, you shouldn't try to you shouldn't be worrying too much about them. You still need to know what's going on. You need to know who's in the market. You need to know what you're playing against, because business is just a series of moves, just very much like chess, which is why I love it so much, right? So you're in this financial advice to butcher shops, and you haven't looked. But you do look, and you might go, let's say you wanted to work in your state, you really didn't want to work outside your state, and there are 2,000 butcher shops. And there'll be more, but let's say, just for argument's sake, there's 2,000. You need 100 customers, and you're set. You're very happy. Now, how many other people are serving butcher shops? Well, there are all the generic financial advisors. And then there's probably people in the niche as well. There's probably other people that are serving that same niche too. And so you need to be aware of those people, because they're going to get the lion's share. And that's where you're going to either be taking it away, because with a lot of businesses, it's not a case of it's a completely new blue ocean market. It's very rare that you'd actually get a blue ocean. In fact, blue ocean isn't blue ocean. I'll explain that in a minute. Almost every business has a competitor of some sort. And so in almost every space, unless it is a brand new space that no one's ever thought of before, you're looking to take an opportunity away from someone else. Now, this is not about being aggressive. I'm just saying this is the reality. Like, if you're an accountant for butcher shops, for someone else who is already running a butcher shop to choose you, they need to leave their other accountant. Or for some reason, they might not have ever had an accountant, but that's going to be rare, okay? So in the majority of cases, they're going to have to leave someone to come to you, which means that you can get more of the market share, but how do you actually go about doing that? Is there enough market share for that to be easy? Or is it actually a very congested market share where you need to work very, very hard to get any incremental improvements in the amount of market share that you can own? So it's a consideration. It's not a be-all and end-all, but there needs to be a market opportunity to scale, because if there are no more customers for you to get, it makes it very hard. If there's not more customers entering the market with the problem that they've just realized that they've got that are already being served, then it's hard for you to actually get them off other people. And I've certainly seen that in the IT industry, actually, in particular. There was a time in the 2000s and even before that where IT companies were rubbish at customer service. But after about 2010, what I noticed, because I was in that industry, is that IT companies became very, very good at customer service. And so it was actually very hard. It wasn't often that they would lose clients, which means that all these businesses out there, because everyone wanted these medium-sized companies that they would be trying to work for, would already had an incumbent. They already had an IT company already looking after them. So to get any more of that business, you needed to take the business away from somebody. So it's kind of the idea of you're either waiting for them to slip on a banana, you're waiting for them to make a mistake, which means that the company's looking for someone else, or you're looking for someone to grow into your market. Let's say that you're on a medium size, you're waiting for small companies to grow into your market. Or you've got some points of difference that are actually going to be attractive to, again, another niche type of business. So there needs to be opportunity to scale, and you need to be aware of that. So do your market research, have a look out there, see who else is playing in the market, ask the question, where am I going to get these new customers from? If you can't answer that question, then again, it might not be an opportunity to scale with this business. Number 4 is the ability to scale. And I mentioned this a little bit before, which is that you have the capacity for growth. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that you are going to be nimble enough that you can grow to take advantage of the opportunity that you've just built into the business. So let's say that you're running a manufacturing company. You've just doubled your orders. Can your manufacturing facility handle 100% more work? And a lot of the time, that's a big no. And especially if you've got a moat around your business, which means it's a business that someone can't just start up tomorrow. They've actually got to put a lot of equipment in. They've got a lot of infrastructure and things like that. It's hard to scale up those businesses. You can absolutely do it, but you've got to start planning for that. So once you start getting your systems in place, you've got your pipeline, you've got your marketing systems, you've got your ability to scale. Then you've got to start looking at, like, how are we going to scale? How are we going to add to the deliverables? I talked to a guy recently who is a young guy, 22 years old, fantastic. And he'd done the right thing, which I've seen so many startup entrepreneurs fail at, which is they always build this product and spend 2 years building it in the hope that they'll find a market on the other side. And they rarely do, because it's the old, I'll build it and they will come model, which rarely works. But what this guy did was he found a market that already had a need. There was a certain thing that they really wanted. And so he went out and sourced a product to fulfill that need and that want. And he grew very quickly. And so he got up to sort of 100 orders a month, which is fantastic. And now he's like, all right, well, how am I going to boost this up and how am I going to scale it up? And so one of the questions I asked him was, what other products can you buy? All right, well, there are no other products. This is the only product. All right, well, what other opportunities are there for them to buy this product? Well, they can gift the product. And we actually looked at the numbers and found that was only 4% of people would actually come back and do a return gift for somebody else, because the gifting market is so small unless that's the primary business that you're in. And so the discussion was like, all right, well, what else can we sell? Going back to the first point, or there's accessories and there's other models of this thing, and we're looking at growing that way, which is fantastic. But on the delivery side, I'm like, all right, what is the delivery here? Can we scale up the delivery? And then he let me know that really all the delivery is he orders a shipment of these products in. He needs to take a label, stick it on the box, and the postie basically comes and picks them all up. So there's literally an hour's worth of work a day in this business just doing fulfillment, because he doesn't have the overhead of actually creating the product. Obviously, there's a chunk of money he spends to get the original product into the country, but that's a great model for scaling. So the risk then is if the business that he's getting product from goes out of business or changes the way it sells, like it could put the prices up, which then messes with your margins. There was plenty of margin in this business, great business. Or they potentially get bought out by a competitor. That can happen, and I've seen that happen before as well. So, where can you deliver more? Is there the opportunity to scale that through the delivery side of things? And what are the risks associated with it? So identifying those risks so you don't actually fall into a trap where everything's going sweet. And I have seen this before. And then suddenly one of your main suppliers just turns off the tap and suddenly you can't get product. You've got plenty of people who want to buy product, but you can't get the product to deliver to them, right? Massive issue there. So you just got to be aware of some of these things. But if you're looking at the 4 things in general, if you've got a product or service that you can sell more than once, if you've got a profitable business model, if you have the market opportunity to scale, and if you've got a way of scaling your delivery, then you're gold. And this is where you really need to invest in your marketing and sales if you want to scale. And that's a big if, because there are plenty of people out there that don't want the headaches that potentially come from scaling. And there are all sorts of things, the headaches around that. One is management, the need to move into a management position. Funnily enough, there's an ebook that I keep not ebook. There's a book that I keep referring to everyone to recently, which is the E-Myth and the E-Myth Revisited, which really is the tale of a business owner that goes through the headaches of moving from startup to actually a proper business. And the business is a profitable enterprise that runs without you. So it's about creating systems, processes, stepping out of the work and not doing the work yourself. So these are all considerations and all part of the mix, because if you're a technician, I mean this in the broader sense, let's say that you're, I don't know, a consultant that loves doing the consulting. If you're a graphic designer who loves the graphic design work itself. If you're an accountant who actually loves the account management with dealing with customers one-on-one, do you want to move out of that space and actually become the manager of the people who run those systems? Do you want to be a manager? And then if you step back further, do you want to be an owner, which is kind of like, being on a board, and then you're still a manager. You're in a board or a role, or even as an owner, you're still managing the manager. And so there may be a lot less headaches at that time. And certainly I've seen that is the case once you get good management in there. But then you've still got this key person issue potentially within your business. So do you want to scale to that point? Or are you happy to be doing the work? And if you are happy to be doing the work, it's far less about scaling and it's far more about gardening. And what I mean by that is looking at your patch and looking at your clientele and saying, where do these clients rank in my perception of them? A, B, C, or D? A clients, fantastic to work with, always pay on time. They're a joy. And in fact, they thank you for the work that you do for them. So they're great. We want those sort of people. They're the better type of client. They're moving back to the Bs. Most of the time, that's the case. Sometimes there's issues. Sometimes there's niggles. Then we've got below the line, which is the C-type clients, which sometimes don't pay on time. Sometimes argue around price, sometimes have a problem with the way things are done, or they've got suggestions on how you should change your systems and things. Well, so feedback's good, but you often need to have a conversation with those people to say, right, this is the expectation. This is what we're delivering. I need you to be happy with that. Otherwise, potentially, it would be better with you to work somewhere else. So you've got to either move them up or move them out. And the D-type clients you want to remove. So you look at your patch of clients and say, how many D-weed type clients, they're the weeds that you're literally pulling out by the roots, out of the business, and just get them out of your business, because they're poison. They are poison. They're stealing your time. They're stealing your money. They're stealing your brain power, your mindset and mind space. And I remember the first time that I fired a client, it was incredibly freeing. And that's the interesting thing too about business owners, is that we usually get into this space because we want the freedom to make choices. We want the freedom to do what we want in our life. And eventually it's either a case of ambition to build this thing that is an identity piece, or it's to actually have the lifestyle that we want, which again comes back to freedom and choices, right? So the worst way to actually destroy freedom and choices is to move from being an employee in someone else's business where you thought your boss was an idiot. This is an old line, mind you. And then you actually move in to be running your own business where you know your boss is an idiot because the boss is you. So you've got no choice. And you're finding yourself, especially in the scaling pace, if you haven't got the opportunity to scale and you don't enjoy the process of scaling and the new skills or the new positions you need to hold while you're scaling, you can find yourself very much a slave to your business. And you can become a slave to the documentation, or a slave to your employees, a slave to your clients. And that's the opposite, the complete opposite of that freedom of choice that you wanted when you first started your business. So think about scaling. Do you want to scale? Do you want to keep it boutique? If you do, you still need to be able to have a great pipeline of people, because you will need to replace customers over time. There will be some form of churn. Do you want to look at the patch of your clients and start weeding them? Or do you have those 4 things I talked about? The product and service that you can sell more than once, the profitable business model that is ready to scale. You've got a market opportunity to scale, and you've considered your delivery pathway so that as you grow, you can deliver on that growth. If you've got those things, then why wouldn't you scale? Why wouldn't you actually build a business that you can step away from and allow other people to run while you walk along the beaches of the world and enjoy your time? Or if you're an ambitious person like myself, start another business. You've got that business that's running without you. You'll touch base with it once every 3 months. You've got good general management in there. Hey, you might even have an advisory board or a board of directors in there, and you've stepped back. And then you've got freedom of choice again. You can do whatever you want with your life. How cool would that be? So if you're interested on how to scale your business, if you're in a situation where you're thinking about, should I be scaling? What's the best way to scale? Then it might be an opportunity to come and chat with me. If you're not in a place to scale, then you definitely should be chatting to me anyway, because there's a problem with your profit. There's a problem with your pipeline. You don't have necessarily the customers that are going to give you the opportunity to scale. You don't have the profitability in the products and the services. So these are all part of the things that I help people with on the weekly basis, especially in the Forge coaching program. So until next time, consider scaling. Stay passionate, and I'll catch you on the next one. Make sure to visit russellpearson.com for more podcast episodes, videos, and more. russellpearson.com.